Welcome to the Wolverine Recruiting Show. I am Clayton Sayfie with our recruiting insider, Holland, as always, covering some of the top headlines here surrounding Michigan football recruiting this week. We got a few of them. It's obviously a big weekend for the Wolverines in terms of getting some kids on campus. They can't talk to the coaches or be in the building or go to the game, Michigan-Wisconsin on Saturday night, but they're getting together. They're going to watch it together in Ann Arbor. A lot of the commits, a lot of few targets in 2021 and 22. So we'll cover some of that. Remember to check us out at thewolverine.com. Use the promo code BLUE60. You get 60 days of our premium content, all the insider scoops for free. Let's start, though, with some negative news, not surprising news based on the developments of the last couple of weeks, but negative if you're a Michigan fan. This is a kid that Michigan really wanted. Rayshawn Benny, Rivals 100, defensive tackle right out of Oak Park, Michigan, just down the road from Ann Arbor. He chooses Michigan State, and really the biggest win that Mel Tucker could possibly have over Jim Harbaugh on the recruiting trail this early in his tenure.
Yeah, it was a tough loss for Michigan. Obviously, they were the perceived leaders very early on. As his recruitment started, and then as it kind of dwindled down, Michigan was still the projected favorite. We put in future cast picks for Michigan months ago, and then slowly it started trending downwards for Michigan. And Michigan State made a nice push. You have to give credit to Mel Tucker and his staff for coming in late, closing the deal, and they did a fantastic job over there with their pitch. On the Michigan side, it's really disappointing because Benny, in my opinion, is easily a top 100 player at a position of need in your own backyard. And I always said I was afraid of Sean Nua closing. I think Sean Nua has been one of the weaker recruiters on staff, and obviously they haven't been able to close with any elite defensive tackles. And I said the same thing with George Rooks, who I'm sure we'll talk about here in a second. He was supposed to make his decision last month, or now 2 months ago, and Michigan was the perceived favorite, and then Penn State made a late surge. And I said the same thing. I'm afraid that Sean Nua won't close. And so Sean Nua has to close. I mean, bottom line, we can make all these excuses and everything for him, but at the end of the day, he has to close. I mean, he's the lead recruiter with these guys. And granted, he had a lot of help with Benny. It was a whole team effort, which makes it a little more disappointing. But Sean Nua has to close. I mean, he's not getting the top guys along the defensive line. And in order to compete at college football's highest level, you have to land top defensive linemen. So I don't think there's any way around it. Losing Benny to Michigan State, especially, really hurts with the negative in-state perception, with losing a top 100 guy to your rival. It just stinks on the recruiting trail. And then, on top of that, Michigan's obviously on a 2-game skid. There's question marks surrounding Jim Harbaugh's future all over social media. So, it's not great right now. I wrote today, it's important to keep things in perspective. Michigan still has the number 7 recruiting class. They can still right the ship, especially this weekend against Wisconsin with a lot of guys on campus. But as it stands right now, that was obviously a big loss.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned how big it was, and a few times Sean Nua needs to close. Defensive tackle is a problem if you watch Michigan right now on the football field. If you look at their class right now in 2021, if you look at the 2020 class, and the lack of bodies in there that can play defensive tackle. So I guess let's talk about George Rooks, the guy you mentioned, maybe what the latest is with him and where Michigan goes next. Are there other names in the mix, I guess, at defensive tackle? I know you've thrown one or two out here since Rayshawn Benny really started to trend towards Michigan State and ultimately picked the Spartans.
Yeah, there are a couple of guys that they're monitoring. Right now, the top target remains George Rooks. He continues to delay his decision, so we'll see when that ever comes. I still think Penn State and Michigan are at the top of his list. Unfortunately for Rooks, neither has given him any reason with their on-the-field performance to pick one or the other. Boston College is increasingly becoming a dark horse, and Pitt is still involved there as well. So George Rooks has always been a little bit of a different recruit, kind of quiet, a little indecisive. Reminds me a lot of Drew Kendall from a personality standpoint. So we'll see how that one shapes out. But again, he's a guy that Michigan led for in the months leading up to his decision, and then there's a late surge from another school, and it looks like they're falling behind. So I think right now it's still a pretty even battle with Penn State, but these are two guys that Michigan could have closed with, month or two ago, and they didn't. And so again, I think it goes back to Sean Noah's ability to close. I think he's a likable guy. I think recruits like him on the trail. But I thought about this the other day. It's like a weird analogy, but you know how like when you're in high school or you're in middle school and like girls like nice guys, but they never date the nice guy. That's how it is with Sean Nua. They like him, but they don't like want to commit to him. So I feel like that's how it's been on the recruiting trail, and so kind of sucks for Michigan. With Benny off the board, I think George Brooks is a must land.
Yeah, for sure. And that'll be a huge one to watch if he ever commits. I mean, who knows? Maybe he just never commits and doesn't play college football. I mean, obviously kidding, but yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Neither of them will play, but no, it'll be interesting to follow that as things go forward. And like we mentioned, you can rattle off reasons why Michigan needs defensive tackles, not only in this class, but in the next couple. You got Alex Van Sumerman in 22, but I'd like to add a couple more big bodies in there if you're Michigan in the future here. Let's talk about this weekend. A huge weekend in Ann Arbor. Michigan getting, 20 guys on campus, touring themselves, getting together, organized, sounds like, by, some of the top leaders of the class and their parents in 21, which would be, J.J. McCarthy and Junior Colson and all of them getting together, bonding. A lot of these kids haven't met. I was talking to Andrell Anthony after his game last weekend because he had just met his fellow wide receiver commits, Christian Dixon and Xavier Worthy, who were in town last week or a couple weeks ago for the Michigan State game. And he was like, yeah, I mean, we talk all the time, but we had never met in person. So I think that's something that a lot of people are lacking in 2020 is the in-person connection. So that would be cool for all of them to get together in terms of that. So EJ, what's your vibe right now heading in with a bunch of commits, a few really, really important targets, especially in 2022 coming into town? What's your overall read on things right now heading into this weekend?
Yeah, I think with 2021, it's just making sure everybody has a feel for Michigan, getting the vibe around campus, getting a look, at the school itself, getting a feeling for Ann Arbor as well, getting to, eat at local places, mingle with the locals, seeing if it's a good fit, especially for guys that have never been to campus, like Jaden McBurrows, Jaden Hood, TJ Guy. Those guys getting their first look at Michigan is big. Keeping guys committed that might still be talking to other schools like Hood or like Andrell Anthony, I think is coming back as well. Michigan State making a hard push there for him. So getting these guys together and just meeting, having their parents meet, feeling more comfortable with Michigan, I think is the goal for the 2021 class. On the flip side, for 2022, Tyler Martin's coming in. I talked to him last night. He told me he wants to be more of a big vocal recruiter, and this weekend will give him prime opportunity to do so with top targets like Will Johnson, Damani Jackson, Tyler Morris coming in, Isaac Thompson. So I think that potentially Sebastian Cheeks as well. So I think that Tyler Martin has kind of the biggest job out of all the recruits on campus as far as recruiting guys that are uncommitted. And those are some heavy hitters in 2022. I mean, they're all top 100 guys except for Isaac Thompson, who's a top 250 guy. So, if Michigan's able to land some of those guys, that would be huge for 2022. And then we can't forget there's one uncommitted 2021 recruit coming in Sierra Wright. Michigan obviously needs corners. Sierra's a top 100 prospect nationally. He's a guy I saw during my swing in California this summer. He's long, he's fast, he's kind of what Michigan needs in this scheme at the corner position. I think USC is still the heavy favorite for him, but He really wanted to get a look at Michigan. He's coming on his own dime, and I think that's big if Michigan's able to make an impression on Sierra, even though it's not your normal visit.
How much do you think a visit like this could impact a recruitment for not only him, but the guys you mentioned earlier, like Damani Jackson or Will Johnson or Isaac Thompson? What kind of a boost? I know a lot of those are far from being over. A lot of those recruitments are still going to continue to play out. But what could it do, do you think? Best case, I guess, for some of these guys in Michigan's chances here.
Yeah, I think it definitely helps. I think it's good for like Damani Jackson and Will Johnson to meet each other. They've had some interactions on social media, but one guy's in California, one guy's in Michigan. They've never met. I think the only person that's met both of them is me out of anybody in the planet. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, getting them to kind of meet and then spending time with Tyler Martin as well as the 2021 commits is big. Damani grew up playing through some youth leagues with Christian Dixon, so it'll be cool for him to be able to hang out with Christian. Will know some of the local 2021 commits as well. So I think it helps just from being able to, again, get a feel for campus, get a feel for Ann Arbor, get a feel for guys that could potentially be your future teammates and see if you're a fit from a campus standpoint, from a city standpoint, and from a culture standpoint.
Absolutely. Another thing going on this weekend that you will be at will be on Saturday at noon. This is a huge game between West Bloomfield and Sterling Heights Stevenson, two teams that we've talked about quite a bit on various videos throughout the season, because you have Sterling Heights Stevenson, the home of Rivals 100 Michigan offensive lineman commit Giovanni Alhadi, and then you have West Bloomfield, who is the home of plenty of Michigan targets, including Donovan Edwards, Rivals 100 running back. What's your vibe heading into that? How excited are you to see that? And then I guess, what do you expect to hear from Donovan Edwards when you talk to him after the game, and Dylan Tatum and those guys from West Bloomfield? And then also seeing Giovanni Alhadi, who's obviously locked in with Michigan.
Yeah, really excited to see this game. I circled it on my calendar weeks ago, assuming that those two teams would get through their first and second round games. And so obviously they did. The biggest game in the state of Michigan, maybe all year long. So I'm excited to go out there, check out these guys. It's my first time seeing them in game since last year. So excited to see how Giovanni Alhadi has kind of progressed from the last time I saw him in game a year ago. Same with Donovan Edwards. Excited to get a look at Dylan Tatum. There's a lot of mixed reviews. Some people love Dylan Tatum. Some people aren't as high on him. So really interested to see him. And then, yeah, just catching up with Donovan, just seeing kind of what his plans are. Obviously, he's in full season mode right now. So I think with him, it's are you still going to make self-guided tours? Are you still on track to enroll early? Do you have a firm decision date in mind? So, it'll be interesting to see what Donovan has to say after the game. But, like I said, I'm really pumped up. It's one of the biggest games of the season, if not the biggest game of the season. So Saturday should be a lot of fun in the Mitten.
Yep, and EJ will have coverage from that. I'll be out on Friday night to see Raheem Anderson, Michigan offensive line commit, play for Detroit Cass Tech. Playoff action there. So we'll have that coverage at thewolverine.com. But those are the top storylines this week. Check us out over there at the Wolverine. Get 60 days of our premium content for free by putting in that promo code BLUE60. We'll see you guys next time.